So, a person who looks good from the back is called a talikogenic. And I know that sound in itself makes it a little bit smarter now when you say it in person. So, you sound like you have a little bit of that IQ. Unfortunately, either way, no matter how much IQ that you have, most of y'all can't answer the one question that I usually ask at about this time. And it is, it's unfortunate that this is one of those English words that will never really be used, mainly because there's no place where it'll actually seem appropriate enough to use it. Like, the English language is pretty interesting. They have some of the most complicated words to define some of the most easy, simple, and mundane things. Things that you can describe with like a statement. But when it comes to feelings, that's when the English language is suddenly like off. Because there's some things that most local languages can probably define with like a word and shit. But with English, that's when they bring up shit like it's cheesy, it's corny, it's angsty. Like, what the fuck is angsty? I don't know. Anyways, it is about time we start because this is the end of season 2 and we have to do this right. So, welcome to Break Time on West Side, your number one break time podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who has successfully found the A spot, but in like a nursery school. He has managed to find out why the chicken crossed the road, because it was slaughtered somewhere. And he is still your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man. It is none other than I, Sir Denver B. The show is Tweetstreet, the show where we take a deep dive into Twitter, pull up a bunch of tweets here and there, and break them down real quick. Now, as usual, you know how the drill goes. You send us the tweet on our DMs on Instagram at Breaktime on Westside. You can also send it to my personal DMs on Twitter. It is at Bagaka. The D, the B, and the D are capital, as usual. And we'll break it down here. Now, unfortunately, this is the final episode, but as usual, you can still send the tweets. They might just factor into next season's round of topics. And like I had once said before, no tweet is safe. Every tweet is allowed. Now, before I get into the roundup of tweets that we have for today, I need to go into something real quick. As of the time of this recording, it is alleged that Cardi B has just filed for a divorce from Mr. Kiari, aka Offset, and well, it's making the news, so I might as well just bring it here. Now, as usual, people automatically just jump to the fact that Offset cheated, of which, yes, maybe he cheated before, but it doesn't mean that that's the only reason why, or the main reason why she's dropping him. And of course, a lot of Cardi B fans have been running their mouth like Cardi O. But, we can just leave that on the side for now. These guys have been coming off and they're like, oh, how do you expect Offset to be loyal? Oh, why can Offset be loyal? Cardi B has like everything. And the minute I saw that particular bit where it's like she got everything, that was when I kind of lost it. Because y'all don't understand what the fuck it is that niggas look for when it comes to getting a babe or even getting married. Because the person who said this was a babe. I just have to say this properly because clearly someone has to. Just because you have a good package doesn't mean that you'll necessarily make a good wife or a good girlfriend or just a good partner in a relationship in general. And a lot of people usually get it wrong that, you know what, if I can be A, B, C, D, then I'll be able to keep a man, or if I get blah blah blah, if I make this much money I'll be able to keep a babe. And it's usually wrong. It's one of the daftest things. Well, I wouldn't call it daft, but it's one of the most misguided things I've heard of over the many years that I've been listening to people say this. Because normally people would think that, oh, if I make this much money as a guy, if I make sure I'm financially stable and I treat this babe nicely, I take her on dates, I make sure that she's well taken care of, then she won't cheat on me, she won't leave me, she'll want to be with me forever. And normally those are the guys that will end up being cheated on, they're the ones that will end up being dumped. You'll find that the person that the babe cheated on him with is probably some broke ass dude that barely knows head from toe in terms of, making a financial plan and shit. He probably isn't doing that well. Like, it doesn't usually end up looking that good. Because it's the same exact thing with the ladies. You'll find that they go with a guy and they're like, you know what, as long as I can ride him good, as long as I treat him nicely and I give him some level of emotional support, or I make sure that I can pay his bills because apparently a lot of us want our bills paid and shit. Then he won't leave me, he won't drop me and shit. All of a sudden, you find that he's probably ended up cheating on you with like your maid or some shit. Like, that's probably one of the biggest issues why people never understand why different people cheat. And the thing is, sometimes it just comes down to choice. If your partner doesn't choose to be with you every single time, it's not going to work out. By all means, people can say Cardi B was a perfect package because she was thick, she was fine, she was successful, she seemed sweet enough that, she was loving with Offset and everything, and they did songs together. Probably she looked all that good, but we don't know what happened behind the scenes. We don't know if she was a shit mother or a good one. We don't know if she was a shit homemaker or a good one. Hell, on the WAP song, she just so happened to say that she don't cook, she don't clean, but she clearly did something to get that ring. Now, I'm not gonna say that because of that she's a shit partner or she isn't perfect. By all means, she could have all of that, she could be perfect. Personally, from my opinion, I don't really think that was all that much that she claimed to offer, but it's entirely a matter of personal opinion. But Offset still wanted her, Offset still chose to marry her and shit. Now you look at Offset, who probably cheated once, you don't know if he cheated again, you don't know if the pussy was that good for him. Hell, a lot of these people that talk all that rah-rah about they can lay it down properly, oh, they got the pipe, they have a tendency to underperform. So you don't know if Cardi B was underperforming or if that WAP was a WAP or a DAP. I'm saying. So, of course, you can't entirely be sure of Offset's reasons for choosing to cheat, and you can't even be sure that Offset cheated in the first place. So, normally, I would say, just leave them alone, it's their business. But if you really do want to chalk it down to what it is that could be the problem, honestly, it could be anything and everything. Because at the end of it, was Offset a good husband, partner, father? We don't know. We can't entirely be sure. Was Cardi B a good wife, a good mother, a good homekeeper, a good babe, a good relationship partner? I don't know. Was she a bad one? I don't know. But either way, the divorce is apparently filed, so we'll pretty much just be here for the ride to see what the fuck happened. But anyways, we might as well just move on to the tweets real quick. So on to the first tweet. Sex is just sex. It'll never fill the vacuum of purposelessness. The sooner I learned this as a man, the sooner I stopped simping or studying. Try as you may, you will not sex that void away. There are not nearly enough payoffs in sex for the male to warrant precedence. Men lived many years and died 1,000 more, searching for spiritual transcendence in women's thighs. And each time, much like the last, they came out empty. You'd think they'd learn from it, but no sooner were they out of one hole than they started digging the next. Like, this is probably one of the most philosophical sounding literary pieces of work I've seen on Twitter. The short version of this is, you can't fuck your way out of a lonely heart. I think that's the easiest way to say it. Cuss words included and everything. But ideally, let me say it like this. No matter how many times you bang, if you're lonely at the beginning, if you're going in and you're a lonely person and you have some unresolved internal issues, no matter how much sex you have, it'll never do shit for you. Like, it's one of those things that guys usually sort of like to revel in. The idea that, oh, you know what, I'm out of this relationship, I'll be swimming in pussy. I'll be diving into that thing and I'll move from babe to babe to babe to babe. And the problem is, you genuinely do feel lonely. You aren't properly out of the relationship. You're probably having some issues with yourself. You might be having low self-esteem. You might just generally be lonely or just not feeling well from a spiritual or a mental level. And you think that sex will cover that because you're getting pussy, so the boys think that you're really doing good, but internally you won't even be doing that well, because at the end of it, if your internals aren't good, no amount of sex will cover it. Like, a lot of people have always tried to make it look like sex can solve so many things. Can sex cure a cold? Yes, possibly. And that one is actually even scientifically possible. It's actually a scientifically viable point. But does it mean that you can use sex to cure a whole lot of other things? No. Can you use sex to solve an argument? Not unless if you're talking about practicing in the bedroom, then maybe, but normally, no. You can't unfuck you out of a bad argument, just the same way you can't unfuck your way out of loneliness. Because at the end of it, It's just biology. There's nothing internally arousing about it. That's why, for some people, they will fuck and others will make love. Making love could help you out of loneliness. It could. But if you haven't really found your way out of it from a personal level, then even that won't work as well. So maybe before you go ahead and start trying to chase the idea of banging every single day or banging all of these 10s, making sure that you don't sleep with anyone besides a 9 or a 10, or booty only, or certain girls here and there, maybe you need to start handling the issues that might be affecting you on the internal, such as your loneliness, before you go for that. By all means, it doesn't mean that every person that bangs a lot of women is lonely. It doesn't mean that every person that wants to sleep around a lot is a lonely person. There's a lot of people who do that and they're properly fulfilled. They're feeling good. Like, that's what they wanted to do and they're alright with it. They probably don't even give too much of a shit about the emotional support and all that. Maybe because they get it from elsewhere. And maybe because they're focusing on something else. But if you are lonely and you are getting into meaningless sex, trust me, no matter how much sex you have, no matter how many babes you bang, no matter how good the sex is, you will never be able to fuck your way out of a lonely heart. So first handle that, then you can go and have some meaningful sex. Anyways, on to the next tweet. A lot of men want to be in the height of their career before marriage, in fear that having a wife will distract them from their goals. The irony is that lots of men who achieved greatness through history did so with a woman by their side. The right one won't be a burden. Well, before I handle this entire tweet, let me just start with the bottom bit. The right one won't be a burden. Yes, that is true, but unfortunately, we have to look for the right one. And that in itself is a burden. And I don't think you probably understood that very well. But anyways, let me just handle it real quick. So, the thing with guys and wanting to be at the height of their career before marriage and by the time they're getting married is primarily just because we want to make sure we can secure our family's future. Like the future family or future offspring want to secure their future. And the thing is, when you have a wife, or at least when you're busy getting into a relationship with someone that you're trying to marry, or just getting into relationships in general with the hopes of marriage, it's not even about it being distracting as it is about taking away from the resources. Because ideally, as a man, you're valued for your resourcefulness. Chris Rock said it best: only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. For men, you have to be resourceful. You have to have a certain level of resourcefulness for you to be considered worthy of love and affection. Now, that might not seem like that big of an issue when you're dating, but when you're trying to get married, when you're trying to find someone, you need to conserve as much of your resources as possible and sort of use it to grow. So you can't exactly keep throwing it around in the name of dates, in the name of doing relationship stuff, couple stuff, because even though the other person is handling their side of the bill, it's taking up the money and it's also taking up the time. Time is just as much a resource as money. Hell, it's even a much bigger and more valuable resource than money, because money you can lose and make some more. You lose time, you're not making any more time. You can only try and prioritize and assign a little bit of extra time to that same thing. So that way you kind of have to understand that for guys, because of the pressures that we have right now, we have to be resourceful. We have to make sure we're at a certain point in our lives or in our careers so we can probably get maybe the finest girl that we'd like, or probably the best person that we would call, I don't know, fit for our lifestyle or for our lives. We kind of have to make those sacrifices. Like, people used to make such sacrifices back in the day, but considering that getting an income back in the day was a lot easier than it is right now, because of employment rates and shit, it kind of makes it look like back then you could go and be with someone when you're at the bottom and you'll grow together, but they still had to have some level of resource with them. So ironically speaking, in as much as yes, they got someone when they weren't doing that well, they thought that they were doing well enough to get someone. So for a guy, especially right now, our version of what doing well, what being successful is, it's a little bit different. It's probably a lot higher. So we want to get there first before we can decide to be with someone. And also, when you actually think about it, for a lot of us guys, we need to be somewhere so that we can actually get some good pipe. Because clearly we can't lay pipe with people on our level, because those girls are busy chasing people that are way above our level, at least on the income front. But anyways, on to the next tweet. How come men never need reassurance? Like, why are y'all so secure? What's the secret? Well, it's actually not too big of a secret. We've always had it harder, in a sense, in terms of emotional support. We've always been told to quote unquote man up, or quote unquote be a man. So it's always thought that, we should always be handling our business. But here's the funny thing. It's not like we never need assurance. A lot of times we do. And to be completely honest, a lot of us who get reassurance or, some form of support, we usually get it from the boys, because it's only your guys that will understand your struggle, and it's only guys that have been where you're at who will understand the struggle. Women may not necessarily understand the struggle, which makes it harder for us to sort of open up to you guys. Plus, ideally, when you're exposing the fact that you're struggling and you need reassurance, it sort of makes you a bit more vulnerable, and vulnerability and weakness sometimes look like the same thing. And the last thing that we want to look like as guys is weak in front of women, so we won't sort of show it to you. But just to sort of give you some context that guys don't have it easy, and we usually have it really rough, especially with the lack of emotional and mental support. The highest number of suicides committed in the world are committed by men. Men will commit suicide a lot more than women will. Men have a higher probability of committing suicide than women. And it's mostly because we've been taught to man up, and we've been taught to not be vulnerable and constantly handle our shit. Now, if you have a good set of boys around you as a guy, then you will get support from them. They should not only be able to help support you, or, you shouldn't just support each other financially or socially, but emotionally and mentally as well. And that's probably one of the few gems of good male friendships that a lot of people usually fail to see. Sometimes people will hear, I'm meeting up with the boys, and they think that, all of you guys are just gonna meet up and watch ball and have drinks. But sometimes we genuinely meet so that we can discuss our issues and help each other sort of just carry on, because surviving on this planet ain't easy. Especially if you look at the way 2020 has been, surviving has not been easy for a lot of us on planet Earth. Like, people have lost wives, people have lost jobs, people have lost friends, people have lost money. So it hasn't been that easy for a lot of people to carry on, and that reassurance by your boys, that support from your boys, is one of those things that has kept a lot of us sane. So yes, it's not that we never need reassurance. We usually do. Sometimes we need a lot of it, but we usually get it from our friends. Our close friends, the close friends that actually help us. Not from drinks, not from the partying, but from the close friends that are there with us to help us. So as far as secrets goes, that's ours. But anyways, that has been it for the tweets of Tweetstreet this week and this season. Thank you so much for being a part of this entire season. Whatever time it is you came in, whether it was in the first episode, whether it was season 1, or even right now, thank you so much for being a part of season 2 of Tweetstreet. As usual, remember, the place to send your feedback, your thoughts, your opinions is on the IG at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can hit up my personal DMs at Bagaka the D. The B and the D are capital. The minisode resumes next week, and season 3 of Tweetstreet resumes on the 23rd of October. So as far as all of that goes, I will catch you guys on the next break. Take care. Bruh, Like, I'm wondering if Offset now is diving into DMs as like a single nigga, just like, I'm now a bachelor looking for a woman. Especially since Cardi B isn't the only person that turned Offset on. I just figured I might as well use that one.